You are listening to Family Justified. Take a moment, settle in. Today's story will begin now.
My blood hit the kitchen tile before the pain registered. My mother's ring had sliced my cheek, and she leaned close enough to whisper, "Ungrateful brat," like it was a family motto. Behind me, my father slammed me into the wall, his voice low and certain. "After everything we've done for you, you owe your sister that money." My 6-year-old daughter screamed. That sound split something open in me that never closed again. My name is Darcy Adams. I'm 35 years old, a financial advisor, a divorced mother, and the homeowner they thought they could still control. I stood there shaking palm pressed to my face, watching red drip onto the cream floor I had scrubbed the night before. They were yelling about $25,000, rehab, respect, family duty, as if love came with invoices. Then a strange calm arrived, because this wasn't chaos, this was confirmation. 3 months earlier, I had let them move into my home. I smiled. I listened. I forgave on the surface. What they didn't know was that I had already decided this would be the last time they ever touched me. And when my mother's ring cut skin, I knew the timing was perfect. People assume abuse announces itself with shouting. In my family, it arrived as expectation. I learned early that love came with conditions. Heather needed help. Heather needed money. Heather needed another chance. I was praised for being strong, which was just a polite way of saying I wasn't allowed to need anything. When I was 17, I earned a full scholarship to Northwestern University. I remember standing in the kitchen with the letter shaking in my hands, waiting for pride to show up on my parents' faces. It never did. "College isn't practical for you," my mother said flatly. "Heather needs support right now." Support meant funding her modeling dreams, then her first rehab, then the next one. I took a receptionist job at a financial firm instead. Every paycheck went straight into the family account. When I asked to keep a little for myself, my father called me selfish. "Family sacrifices," he said. "You should be grateful to contribute." That word grateful followed me for decades. What they didn't notice was that while I answered phones, I watched everything. I learned how portfolios worked, how risk moved, how money told the truth long before people did. At night, I studied for licenses they didn't know existed. By 25, I was a full advisor with my own clients. They still thought I was the help. I married young, divorced quietly. When Lily was born, I promised myself one thing: she would never grow up thinking love meant fear. I bought my home with my own savings, built a life that finally felt mine. Then 3 months ago, my parents arrived with suitcases and practiced tears. "We lost the house," my mother said. "Heather's treatment drained everything." I should have said no. Every instinct told me to. Instead, I offered the guest house. 1 month, I said, while you figure things out. 1 month turned into 3. The requests started small, just a few hundred, then thousands. Criticism followed. "Lily is too sensitive. You work too much. A real mother would be home more." They corrected her in front of me, undermined me quietly, tested limits the way they always had. When I finally said no more money, the violence surfaced. "25,000 isn't a lot for someone like you," my father sneered, pinning me against the wall. "After everything we've done." My mother stood close, her ring flashing. "Your sister is trying to get better. What kind of person refuses family?" Lily cried behind the counter. That was the moment the pattern snapped into focus. I wasn't their daughter. I was their solution, their resource, their fallback plan. And for the first time, I stopped asking why. I started preparing for what comes next. I didn't confront them after the assault. That surprised even me. Old versions of me would have argued, explained, tried to be understood. This time, I did something different. I documented. The morning after, I cooked breakfast like nothing had happened. Pancakes, coffee, neutral conversation. My parents moved through my kitchen like they owned it, criticizing Lily's posture, commenting on my schedule, asking when I planned to call the rehab facility. I nodded, I agreed, I listened. Then I went to my home office and backed up the audio file from the small recorder in my pocket. The file name was simple: date, time, kitchen. It wasn't the first one. For 3 months, I had been collecting moments, not emotional monologues, not accusations, just facts, dates, exact words, patterns. My parents had always relied on chaos and confusion. I relied on clarity. I installed cameras in the common areas and the guest house. Legal notices were posted as security disclosures. They barely glanced at them. Entitlement makes people careless. Within days, the footage showed what I already suspected. My mother going through my files, my father using my office computer when he thought I was out, taking photos of documents, writing things down. One night, while reviewing recordings, I noticed something else. My father logging into my bank account. He transferred $5,000 to an unfamiliar account. I didn't stop him. Instead, I saved the screen capture and added it to the folder labeled Evidence. At work, I quietly tightened access. My colleague Trevor flagged attempted logins from my home IP address. Denied. Logged. Timestamped. Every move they made left a trail they didn't know existed. At home, I focused on Lily. We sat on her bed one afternoon, surrounded by stuffed animals, sunlight spilling across the quilt. I told her we needed a safety word, something only we would know. Butterscotch, she said immediately, her favorite ice cream. If you ever say that word, I told her, I'll know you need help. No questions. She nodded, serious. She understood more than she should have had to. Later that week, I overheard my mother talking to a neighbor. She's always been unstable, she said softly. After the divorce, we had to step in. She can barely manage on her own. I didn't interrupt. I wrote it down. Another day, my parents invited friends over while I was at work. When I reviewed the footage, I watched them charm my clients, asking questions about investments, offering favors, positioning themselves as helpful, trustworthy. It wasn't new behavior. It was just finally visible. The turning point came when my colleague called me voice tight. They tried again, he said. Pretended to be you, asked for access to client accounts. That night, I sat in my bathroom cleaning the cut on my cheek. It would scar. I accepted that. Most of my scars already lived under skin. I thought about being 17, the scholarship letter, the way my mother dismissed it. I thought about the trust fund my grandfather was rumored to have left me, the one my parents said never existed. I realized something then. This wasn't a bad phase. This was a system. And systems don't collapse because someone gets emotional. They collapse because someone collects proof. The next morning, I visited my sister. She looked healthier than I remembered, clearer. Sitting in a modest treatment center my parents hated because it didn't impress anyone. When she saw the bandage on my face, she didn't ask questions. She just nodded. "They're with you, aren't they?" she said quietly. I nodded back. That conversation changed everything. By the time I left, I had a business card from an insurance investigator, confirmation of fraud, and a truth my parents had buried for decades. They weren't desperate. They were predatory. And they weren't just after my money. They were positioning themselves inside my life, inside my work, inside my daughter's future. That night I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I organized. I called my attorney. I shared access with law enforcement. I secured Lily's records. I prepared a timeline that stretched back 15 years. And then I waited. Because the quiet part of justice isn't dramatic. It's patient. The moment I realized they were coming for Lily, the timeline changed. It started with a phone call from my ex-husband. "Your parents reached out," Jackson said, cautious. "They're worried about you. Said Lily's been having nightmares, that you're unstable." Unstable, their favorite word. By the afternoon, the school counselor requested a meeting. She showed me Lily's drawings, crayon figures with angry faces. A small girl hiding behind a woman labeled Mommy, red marks around the edges. She said her grandmother hit you, the counselor said gently, and that her grandparents told her she might live with her dad soon. That night, while my parents were out, I searched the guest house. Between the mattress and box spring, I found the folder. Highlighted printouts about grandparents' rights, draft custody petitions, fabricated claims about my mental health, forged statements meant for Jackson's signature. They weren't improvising. They were preparing to take my child. I photographed everything and put it back exactly where it had been. Then I called my attorney. "We move now," I said. The next morning, I became exactly who they expected me to be. Quiet, apologetic, agreeable. I served breakfast. I nodded when they criticized my parenting. I listened when they talked about Lily needing structure and stability. Then I invited them into my office. "I've been thinking," I said softly, pulling out a folder, "about family, about responsibility." Their posture changed immediately. I showed them documents for an exclusive investment opportunity, guaranteed returns, limited access, buzzwords designed to trigger greed. My father leaned forward. "And you're offering this to us?" "Family first," I said. I slid forms across the desk, asset disclosures, account information, a limited power of attorney. They didn't question it. They signed. That night, my mother cornered Lily at dinner. "Sit up straight," she snapped. "No wonder your mother can't control you." Lily's voice shook. Butterscotch. I stood. "This ends now," I said calmly. My parents laughed. "You're overreacting," my father said. "If you don't cooperate, we file for custody tomorrow." I played the recording. Their voices filled the room, their plans, their lies. My mother's face drained of color. My father lunged forward. "You think this matters?" he snarled. "We'll destroy you." "No," I said. "You already tried." There was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Detective Marcus stood on my porch with 2 officers and a federal agent. My attorney waited behind them. "Scott and Brenda Adams," the detective said evenly. "You're under arrest." My father ran for the back door. Another officer was already there. My mother collapsed into a chair, crying loudly. My own daughter betrayed me. I watched them being handcuffed. No satisfaction, no relief, just certainty. They had lost control. As they were led outside, my father looked back at me. "We should have gotten rid of you." I met his eyes. "You tried." The door closed behind them. And for the first time in my life, the house was quiet. Not tense, not waiting, just quiet. The silence after they left felt unreal. Not the heavy silence I'd grown up with, the kind that warned you to stay small. This was different, clean, final. I locked the door and slid down against it, my breath finally breaking. My hands shook, but my mind stayed clear. The hard part was over. What remained was holding the line. Lily stood at the bottom of the stairs, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Are they gone?" she asked. "Yes," I said, kneeling in front of her. "They're gone. They can't come back." She searched my face, then nodded. "Good. They made you sad." I pulled her into my arms and held her longer than usual. No explanations, no speeches, just safety. Later that evening, my attorney called to walk me through what would happen next. Charges, protective orders, statements. I listened, took notes, asked practical questions. Process felt grounding. "They'll try to reach out," she warned. "Letters, messages through other people." "They won't reach me," I said. "Everything goes through you, in writing." That night, my sister called. I heard she said quietly, "No defensiveness, no excuses. I gave my statement today." "Thank you," I replied. There was a pause. "I know sorry doesn't fix anything." "I know," I said, "but truth helps." Another pause. "Then I won't contact you unless you want me to." "That's the right boundary," I said. After we hung up, I packed a small bag. Lily and I spent the night somewhere else. Not because I was afraid, but because I was choosing calm over familiarity. The next morning, I returned to the house alone. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, the same cream tiles. No blood, no shouting. Just quiet. I opened my laptop and finalized a few things. Accounts locked, access revoked, client notifications sent brief, factual, professional. No drama, no story, just clarity. In the afternoon, Jackson came by to pick up Lily. "They contacted me," he admitted, eyes down. I didn't respond. "Thank you," I said. "She's safe with you," he added after a moment. "I see that now." I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I let the truth stand on its own. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, watching the sky shift toward dusk. For years, I thought strength meant endurance, that love meant tolerating harm. I was wrong. Strength is choosing distance when closeness becomes dangerous. Love is protecting your child even when the threat wears a familiar face. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I stopped explaining. I started enforcing. The consequences didn't arrive with shouting or headlines. They arrived quietly through paperwork, court dates, and doors that stayed closed. Protective orders were granted, accounts were frozen, investigations widened. I didn't attend every hearing. I didn't need to. The facts spoke clearly without me in the room. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the burden of proving my reality to people determined to deny it. At home, Lily began to breathe differently. She slept through the night. She stopped flinching at raised voices on television. One afternoon, she brought me a drawing, 2 figures holding hands under a bright sun. "That's us," she said. "No scary people." That was when I knew the choice had been right. Months later, my sister sent a short message. No excuses, no requests, just acknowledgement. She was continuing treatment. She was cooperating fully. She understood now how our parents had used us both in different ways. I didn't rush forgiveness. I didn't close the door either. Healing doesn't happen on deadlines. What surprised me most was how calm my life became once everything was in writing. No sudden demands, no emotional ambushes, no late-night guilt disguised as concern. Boundaries weren't loud, they were steady, and because they were enforced, not argued, they held. I used to believe that keeping peace meant absorbing harm. I used to believe that family deserved unlimited access simply because of shared blood. Now I know better. Peace isn't free. It's protected by documentation, by distance when necessary, and by the courage to stop negotiating your safety. Accountability doesn't require revenge. It requires records, timelines, and the refusal to rewrite the truth for someone else's comfort. And self-respect isn't dramatic. Sometimes it looks like locking an account, walking away from a conversation, or choosing silence over one more explanation that won't be heard. I didn't walk away with victory. I walked away with clarity. If you're standing between loyalty and truth, choose the truth. It may cost you relationships that were built on control, but it gives you something far more valuable, your life back. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to Family Justice Files. Your support helps us continue sharing stories about boundaries, justice, and self-respect stories that remind people their truth is allowed to exist.